Obviously, tragic loss the other night. Mylan Hicks and family is grieving. Our thoughts and our prayers go to the entire Renaissance community, Mylan Hicks family, and Spartan Nation, especially our players and past players as well, as we try and honor his memory. We'll do some special things here in the upcoming weeks. This weekend we'll play, Mylan always, all his Spartan gear, he loved to wear black. He liked the black Spartan gear. And really that's why I wore it today in memory of him. But also we'll honor him with the number 6 on the back of the helmet this weekend. And then also we'll wear black socks, black shoes as well. But we probably traveled down there with probably 41 players, I think I counted, that played on the team with him. So he'll be in a lot of people's minds as we move forward. But Mylan's the type of guy that loved football. He loved competing. He went at it 100 miles an hour, and he would be very disappointed in us if we did not do that on a game-by-game basis throughout practice and everything that we tried to accomplish here and go after. So he'll be with us, and just a tragic event. And again, it just talks about and speaks to how life can change on people very, very quickly. And we experienced that with Mike Sadler, and now we experience that again with Mylan Hicks. And it's a tragic event, but just take into account what you have now and cherish it. As far as the football game, as far as what we're dealing with from a football perspective, we need to bounce back. We've won a lot of football games here this past three and a half years or whatever it's been. Have not had much failure at Spartan Stadium, but disappointing football game. I think I've talked about it. Hurt ourselves. Congratulate Wisconsin, but hurt ourselves and put us in a situation where we had to, fourth quarter basically became almost like a 2-minute type situation for us. Couldn't play our football game as we move forward. So we need to bounce back from that, learn from those mistakes, and create some more toughness aspects and just move forward. IU comes in here 2-1. We play for the brass spittoon, which has been something that we've been able to hold on to for a little bit here. Kevin Wilson's in his 6th year, so we've got a history with those guys. All these games have been extremely competitive. Hurry-up offense. Their wide receivers, all pretty much have caught the same number of passes. They're 3 wideouts. So Page and Ricky Jones and Westbrook are the 3 guys that are featured sort of guys. Laglow, their quarterback's junior college transfer guy. He's sort of come on the scene, has done a nice job, threw for a lot of yards this last game. Redding's their running back. Feeney probably anchors their offensive line. Defensively, their 3 linebackers probably are their 3 guys that lead the team in tackles with 44 each. And then in the back end, they have 1 safety that sort of anchors their group there. So football team that's got to respond as well after losing this past week. So it'll be a great matchup at 8 o'clock Saturday night. As far as injuries, I think it's, I've always tried to just sort of be on the up and up with things. John Reschke's out right now, and he's probably out for a significant time period here as he works through a severe ankle sprain. Riley probably is a little bit more day-to-day, and we'll see how that goes as we move through the week. But we'll make an announcement prior to the game as whether he can or cannot go. But we'll see how it shakes out. And then with that, I'll take some questions.
Mark, is there any plan for accommodating the players that want to attend Mylan's funeral?
Well, right now, as I've talked to his mother, we need to get Mylan back in the U.S. So there's been no date set yet. And at that point in time, as soon as the date is set, then we'll make arrangements for our players to be able to get down there. As well as do other things, as I said. I think some of those announcements are probably best for our athletic director to make. But we plan to honor him in a variety of ways.
Mark, a lot of guys on this team obviously played with Mylan. When Mike died in the summer, there wasn't as much going on. Does it almost help guys, and not only the players, but coaches, to have your mind occupied to work through stuff while you're dealing with this?
You know, it was a tough day Sunday. You really didn't want to go in there and talk about a football game, that's for sure. And so we sort of left that up in the air for people, whether they did or they didn't want to be there and that type of stuff. And also had a chapel specifically for him. You know, a chapel with our team specifically to sort of honor him and let our players just sort of be with that memory that evening. But there's no question it's been a challenge, but also I think there's no question that we get on with it because that's who he was. That's who Mike Sadler was. And, you know, when you know those people and you know how committed they were to a football program, you don't want to do anything, I think, to steer away from what you're trying to accomplish.
Mark, kind of moving on with it, you mentioned Reschke being out and Riley obviously being banged up. When you guys face an Indiana team that likes to go at a high pace, how are those losses significant for you on a defensive side, both from a depth and strategic structure?
Well, hopefully we get Ed Davis back. He's getting better and better. That's the plan. So that's going to add an additional guy to us. You know, we've been deep at linebacker. We've got guys who've played. We've got guys who know what to do there. So they're going to pick up the slack. It's an opportunity for people to grow. You know, Andrew Dowell will obviously jump in there. He's started for us before, so he's played a lot of reps for us, so he'll be a significant factor in the game, and he's a guy that can go, you know, play after play after play, 100 miles an hour, one of those type of guys, tremendous conditioned athlete. And, you know, Byron Bull will play in there, Shane Jones, Ed Davis, Chris Fry. We've got numbers. We've got guys. So, you know, Grayson Miller's been a guy that's bounced there in the spring, so he can bounce in there. Indiana's a 3 wide receiver set team, so that'll accommodate that. We'll probably have some freshmen possibly move up and take some reps as well to, you know, more in a backup position type thing. But we'll play a lot of people in this game. We always have, and it's very important in this game to maintain freshness. They come fast. You don't know whether they're snapping the ball in 12 seconds or 30, but they're going to be prepared to snap it in 12. So, you know, substitutions, playing fresh, staying focused, that's the name of the game, and we'll train, and we've really trained for that throughout because that's the way so many teams play nowadays anyway.
Mark, when you looked at the film, looking at Monte Nicholson's performance, Demetrius Cox, what do you see back there? From my perspective, it looked like Nicholson had a really good game. And how much was the third downs on those guys, or were they better than that showed?
Well, you know, there's a couple things. First of all, Monte did have a good game. You know, I think he tackled very well. You know, we tackled well in the back end. He needs to continue to improve. There's still room for improvement, but I thought he played solid. He graded winning. Day, you know, that field safety is a position that gets attacked some. But you know, I thought he could have came up with a big interception. He got both hands on the ball and probably would have took it to the house. It was about on the 20-yard line coming out. But he's played solid, and on those third downs, it was a different coverage in each situation, put on a different scenario, or, you know, when you bring people, you got to get home and affect the quarterback. Quarterback connected, he was on. Thought he played very well in the game, and I said that earlier. But it's sort of on everybody. You know, it depends on leverage. The first one we lost leverage on a corner route. Balls dropped in right on the money. Another time we could have clouded it, you know, and had a corner sitting out there, but decision was made on the field not to. So there's different scenarios as coach speak, but all of them could have been prevented, but you got to give it to them too. So he dropped a couple right on the dime.
Mark, two things quickly. Was Riley hurt in the Notre Dame game or in practice?
Riley was dealing with an injury and further injured it in the Notre Dame game.
Are you concerned? He wasn't the only one with a tough day, but are you concerned about Tyler's confidence? He made some back foot throws and a few ill-advised throws. It's really his first taste of adversity.
You know, I think that as a quarterback, every experience that you have is a learning experience, a growing experience. So even this guy who's in his fifth year, even Tyler who's in his fifth year, he started one game. Now he started 3. He got pressured. As I said the other day, there was pressure in his face. Usually you get pressure in people's face, that affects quarterbacks. That makes them throw off their back foot. Got to do a better job protecting our quarterback, whether it's by structure, whether it's by recognition of what's coming, or whether it's just by actual execution, combination of things. Same thing happens if people get tied up down the field. If there's nobody to throw to, you end up choking the ball, bad things happen. And then there are some decisions that he has to make that have to be better. And those are the three things that always go along with the passing game. I think any of those things can affect you. And again, it's not just the offensive line, it's the protection. Our running backs, for some reason, we're cutting people, and give credit to Wisconsin. They got good players now, and they threw some pressures at us. We didn't block them effectively, and they got home on others, beat us physically. But that's football.
Mark, you mentioned a couple times already about sort of regrouping and bouncing back and that type of thing. You guys have been pretty successful about doing that after an important loss. Mm-hmm. What's the playbook there, and how do you deliver that message to your team?
Well, everybody's challenged. I think we're all challenged. When things don't go well for you, you're challenged, and there's one of two ways to go. You can take the high road and try and get better, persevere through it, or you can go the other direction and say, hey, we can't do this, or get desperate and things of that nature. We've always taken the road that, hey, we're going to get better, learn from our mistakes, and carry on. And as long as our players play, there was no lack of effort in that football game. None. From the first play to the last play, there was no lack of effort. There was no lack of toughness. And when you have those two aspects going for your team, usually people can rise up and they can bounce back. If there was a lack of toughness, lack of effort, lack of leadership, then I'd be very concerned. But that didn't take place. So, hey, you're playing a good football team. I tried to say that all week long, and sometimes you start reading things and you just expect things to happen. But that game was a different type of game, and the dynamics of the game changed in the third quarter because of a fumble. Had opportunities in the first half. Didn't happen. Got the ball at the 50 twice. One time we kicked a field goal. The other time that we ended up fumbling it. So you got to cash in on your opportunities. But there were enough good things that did happen, that you saw enough players playing well and playing hard, that you have I think our future is still very bright. We can control our own destiny, as I said. That happened last year as well, and we just need to learn from these things. The same thing happened in 2014. We lost an early game. We needed to deal with that early loss throughout, and we needed to fight back from it, and we were able to do that. So we've had a history of doing those things. We need to rely on that history and keep pushing.
And just a real quick follow-up on John. Are you optimistic you'll get him back by the end of the year, or is that up in the air at this point?
I'm optimistic that we'll get him back by the end of the year, yes.
Mark, when you made the decision to play some freshmen and some guy, Tristan Jackson, for example, so what does his role become now as a guy who you obviously want to use if you're going to burn that red shirt, and same for the defensive ends?
Well, we got to use him. Because when you're sitting there and saying, do we redshirt, do we not redshirt, you don't want to. You're sort of like crossing that bridge. Once you cross that bridge, you got to use them. Now it's up to them to play and get make plays and be prepared for a football game and play at this level. That's up to them. But they put themselves in a position of use based on their ability. We also have to look and say, okay, based on our defensive end situation, or our wide receiver situation, we need to get guys ready for the future as well. So if they're able to play as true freshmen and they have the talent and the ability to do that, they're only going to get better. And those three guys, I think, and Lakusa, I think all four of those guys, we played those four freshmen, all four of those guys, along with Corley and Panasuk, have that ability to get and grow throughout the season. There may be a couple more that have to play as we go, but we've got a deep football team. That's the reality. Tristan, that remains to be seen.
Mark, is there a difference in preparation during the week coming off of a loss in a big game as opposed to coming off a win in a big game?
I think you got to talk about it. I think when you win a football game, everything looks great. It's not usually as great as you think it is. There's always something that's going to be there for you that you have to deal with. And when you lose a football game, all's not lost. You can't walk around. I've said it many times that the role of a head football coach is to make sure that when things don't go well, that you're able to walk in there and steady the ship. That's the role of the head football coach. It's easy to walk in there after we win, after we beat Notre Dame. It's easy to walk in there and say, or, last year at this time we were 7-0 playing Indiana. It's easy to walk in there and say, hey, everything's great. Hey, fooled them again, fooled them again. And but it's more difficult when things aren't going right. But I think that's when I've always said that's when you're defined. That's when you're defined as a senior. That's when you're defined as a leader or as a quarterback, as a whatever position you're in. You're not hired. You're hired to make things go well. You're not hired because things are going well. That's how I've always felt.
Or kind of along those lines with the resiliency of this program over the past few years, not just the what, but why do you think the guys that you had have been able to, I guess, turn the corner after a loss so well?
I think it's, as I've said before, we've got good chemistry in our locker room, and we've got good leadership, and the culture here has been a culture of winning. And so when you do lose, it's, it hurts you. You take it a little bit personal, or a lot personal. And people usually get themselves ready for the next challenge. I think that's human nature. Basically, that's human nature. And I think in football especially, now that doesn't mean it's going to happen. You got to make plays and do things, on the field. But I think that we can draw from things that went down and just push forward.
Mark, I know you guys really get back at it today, but have you seen the response from Tyler you would expect from a fifth-year guy who's been around in terms of how he's handling it?
Tyler's fine. I mean, he's a confident player. I mean, I talked to him, texted him, Saturday night, and he had already watched the game twice. So, I mean, he's a responsible guy. He'll take ownership in what he did, and he's not a finger pointer. He's mature in terms of how he handles things, and this hasn't been the first time in his football career that something's gone wrong. A lot of things can go wrong at that position. So I'm sure he's prepared to handle these things, and he's got an opportunity to bounce back here and make it happen.
You mentioned that John's injury was his ankle. You mentioned what exactly is with Riley. There was reports out there was a shoulder. Is that what that is?
Yeah, I don't get too specific on injuries. I just say that he's sort of day to day. He'll be back.
Okay. Along those lines, so back with the linebackers, you mentioned Ed Davis getting back into the flow. How much more was he able to do last week, and how much more can you expect of him?
Well, he practiced much better last week, and he had a full day of practice a couple days of the week, so that was very positive. And we just need to. It's sort of day by day, game by game, But I want him to feel confident. As I said, part of this is him having confidence and going back and playing at game speed. So he needs to regain that confidence as he's going in his knee. He's had a knee injury, and it takes a little bit of time to get back in there and get acclimated. But I think he's close to turning the corner. But really, the only person who knows that is Ed.
Mark, a couple of field goals last week, but again, a kickoff went out of bounds. How deflating is that, and is there anything you can do about it?
Well, it ticks the head coach off. Okay, so is there anything you can do about it? I know Kevin Cronin is not trying to do that. So he's just got to relax and hit it with confidence. He's been very good. The rest of the time he's been really great. Good kickoffs, good placement. So, something it's frustrating, but you got to deal with it and move past it. He's still our kickoff guy.
Just one more thought on Mylan. I don't know how many players you get to keep track of. Do you remember the last time you had any dialogue with him, or have you talked to him since?
With Mylan?
Yeah.
I can't remember specifically, but he's been around, whether it was in the spring, or I might have saw him this past summer, whether it was at one of our camps or was it at a camp down in Detroit. But I've seen Mylan, around, and he's always a guy. He had that gleam in his eye. You always saw Mylan. He always brought something good out in you as a person. And I had an opportunity to talk to the GM up in Calgary at the Stampeders, and he said the same thing. You know, it was just something about Mylan Hicks that brought out the best in people. But he was a great competitor and a great teammate, and you know, our guys are missing him. A lot of people are missing him. You know, those guys from Renaissance that played with him, the Chris Normans, the Lawrence Thomas, you know, of the world. You know, those guys in the PSL, guys from Detroit. You know, he was quite a person.
Mark, on Saturday, Malik seemed a little frustrated with the amount of double teams he was seeing. How's he been dealing with that, and what are you and Coach Burton doing to kind of help him work through that?
Well, when you're a good player, you're going to attract you're going to attract attention. He's just got to stay the course. He's playing extremely hard. He plays extremely hard on the field. Just keep making plays, keep playing. But I mean, when you're a good football player, that happens. So I would think that's a natural progression to where he's at in his football career.
Mark, can you talk about the recruiting impact Mylan had on the 2010 class, how he committed early in June, and kind of how that sparked Will Golston and other recruits to follow him?
Yeah, Mylan committed early in the process. He was, as I remember, he was a 4-star corner. Could really run. I think he had, like I said, he's got a great demeanor with people, and I think that with other recruits, he did talk with them, and he did help that cause immensely. But, you know, what he did on the outside, I really can't speak to what he did behind the curtains, but I know that he was one of our early commits, and that was a great recruiting class, you know, in 2010 as he came in, and I think that was the year that Max Bulla came and that whole group.
Going back to Mylan, on the day that he committed to Michigan State, he told us how you got on the phone with him, and he goes, I didn't know he could raise his voice like that, and how excited you were. And looking over my notes, he quoted you as saying to him, thank you for believing in me. And I'm just curious, because anyone can commit now with all the new facilities and the championships and the rings. But what did it mean to you on that day when you still hadn't had those rings to have a guy like that compete?
Well, all those guys back then, LT and Chris Norman from that school and from Renaissance, and so many, I can go in through a lot of players. They all had to believe in the dream, because we were coming off 2009, and we'd gone to a bowl game and all that, but, we had not yet won a Big Ten championship at that time. Been to a couple of New Year's Day bowl games, which was good, but we lost them both. So, I mean, we were on a rise, but there was still he had to believe in a dream that we were going to get there. And when he did come, he experienced really 2 Big Ten championships and New Year's Day bowl games and BCS bowl games and things of that nature. So he was there for all of that, and I think he had a great career here. And I saw a picture that his roommate had laid out his stuff. Maybe it was last night. One of our players was just showing me that today. He's laid his stuff out in his room, just like he liked it. And it was all Spartan gear. It was all green Spartan gear. So, just trying to keep his memory alive.
Mark, kind of a two-sided of the ball question here. One, from your running game, what kind of things did you see looking back at that tape that you want to get more of or maybe do differently? And then on the other side, how do you stop the quarterback from Indiana, and what have you seen a little more on him in depth as he's 3 games in?
Well, what you saw from the game sort of turned last week, like I said, because of, we're on the 50, we're going to have the first down. We're going to be on the 40 or 37 or whatever it is. I think it was a 63-yard pickup of the fumble. So we're on the 37 with the first down. All of a sudden, it's not. It's touchdown the other way. So it goes from 13-6, us sort of threatening, to 20-6, and then very quickly thereafter 23 and then 30 because of the punt drop. So the complexion of the game changed. We were only going to have a certain amount of possession, so we needed to throw the ball. What I saw from a running standpoint, a running game standpoint, we were close. We busted out the first play for the 19-yard run, and after that, they do a great job closing gaps, playing gap football, gap scheme, fitting their gaps correctly. And, they shut us down a little bit. They tackled pretty well. We're getting some yards, but not enough to break one. We didn't break one. But again, we're talking about the first series of the second half. So a lot of things go into running the football. If one guy misses, or one guy has a missed assignment, or one guy doesn't get the job done in execution, things tend to break down. So, and I think you saw a lot of that probably happen from time to time. A 3-yard gain, which should be maybe a 7-yard gain, hinges on small things. So we got to go back and find the inches. From the perspective of IU and their quarterback, yeah, he makes it happen. He's a big, tall guy, throws the ball very well. And, they're the same football team that they've been in terms of asking him what to do. But Kevin Wilson has a system. It's a very good system, very well-run system, and he's had a lot of success with it. So he plays in the system. I think that's what all great football players do, play in the system, but he can make plays. Thanks, guys.